I invited my brother's mistress to our birthday party, and she sat at mine. When she walked in that evening, hair curled, lipstick too red for a family dinner, perfume thick enough to choke a memory, I didn't recognize her at first. But when she pulled out the chair at the head of the table, my chair, and sat down as if she'd earned it, something in me went still. That was the moment everything I thought I knew about my brother, my family, and loyalty itself began to unravel. It was early summer, the kind of day when the air hums with heat and the smell of ripe mangoes drifts through every open window. My mother's old house, our family home, looked just as it always had: faded curtains, humming fan, the familiar clutter of cups and gossip on every surface. I was home to help plan a small birthday dinner for my mother and me. We shared the same birthday, June 14th, something we'd always joked made us two halves of the same stubborn coin. Every year, we'd celebrate together. A simple meal, my brother Adel would bring flowers, and our mother would bake the same vanilla cake she'd been making since we were children. It was one of the few traditions that had survived time, distance, and Adel's unpredictable moods. This year, though, he sounded different when I called him a week before. "Yeah, sure, I'll come," he said, his tone distracted. "Actually, I might bring someone with me. You'll like her, I promise." I didn't think much of it. Adel had always been a dreamer, a man who fell in and out of love faster than most people finish a novel. I used to tease him about it, but after his last heartbreak, a messy breakup that had left him distant and withdrawn, I'd stopped asking questions. So when he said he was bringing someone special, I was glad, even a little relieved. Maybe he was healing, maybe we could have a normal family dinner again. I spent the next few days making everything perfect. I ordered a new table runner, cleaned the silverware, even made my mother's favorite biryani from scratch. I wanted that evening to feel like old times, like family. But that night, as the sun slipped behind the jacaranda trees and the house filled with the hum of conversation, I felt something, a faint current of unease I couldn't name. Adel was late. He was always late, but this felt different. I kept glancing at the gate, brushing my palms on my dress, feeling that strange nervousness that comes before a storm you can't yet see. When the sound of a car finally broke the night, everyone turned. My brother stepped out first, smiling, confident, but behind him was a woman I had never seen before. She was beautiful, yes, but in a way that demanded attention. She wore a crimson dress that didn't belong in our modest living room. Her earrings glittered under the tube light, and her hand rested on Adel's arm like it was a claim. My mother's face brightened instantly. "Oh, Adel, you brought someone. Who's this lovely girl?" Adel cleared his throat. "This is Zara," he said. "We've been seeing each other." Zara smiled, but there was something in her eyes, a flicker of amusement, maybe even challenge, that made me pause. "Welcome," I said politely. "Come in." She nodded, and without waiting, walked straight to the dining table, and sat in my chair. The one I'd set for myself, the seat I'd always taken beside my mother. The head of the table, where I'd poured juice, served food, and toasted every family celebration for years. I hesitated, a fork still in my hand. Adel looked at me, then quickly away. My mother, ever the peacekeeper, laughed it off. "Oh, let her sit, Beta. We'll make space." So I did what I always did. I smiled, swallowed my irritation, and sat quietly. But throughout dinner, something felt wrong. Zara laughed too loudly, called my brother, baby, in front of our mother, and interrupted stories she couldn't possibly understand. And yet, everyone seemed to bend around her energy. Even Adel, especially Adel. He kept glancing at her, nervous, eager, like a man performing for approval. At one point, my mother asked how they met. Zara smiled, a slow, deliberate smile. "Through work," she said. "We've known each other longer than he's told you, I think." I frowned. "Oh, Adel never mentioned anyone from work before." Adel coughed. "It wasn't serious back then," he said quickly. "It just sort of grew." Something about his tone made my stomach tighten. Because I remembered his work from that time, a small advertising firm where he'd been struggling to prove himself. He'd told me, late one night over tea, that there was someone there causing trouble in his team. A woman who had flirted with a married manager and spread rumors when things went wrong. I hadn't asked names then. But now, I pushed my food around my plate, pretending to listen, pretending not to notice the way Zara's hand lingered on his knee under the table. Later, when the cake was cut and the candles blown out, I went to the kitchen to clear up. Zara followed. "You have a lovely home," she said, leaning against the counter. "It's cozy, thank you," I said. "It's my mother's." She loves hosting. She smiled faintly. I can tell. She seems very fond of Adel. Of course she is, I replied. He's her only son. Zara tilted her head. And you're his favorite sister, I'm guessing. Her tone was playful, but her eyes held something else, something sharp. I'd like to think so, I said carefully. She looked down at the tray of dirty glasses. It must be nice, she said softly. To have family that still believes in you, even after mistakes. Before I could ask what she meant, she smiled again, sweet and sudden. I'll go help him outside. And just like that, she was gone. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the flickering kitchen bulb. My pulse was slow, heavy. I didn't know why that line, after mistakes, echoed in my head the way it did. Something about her didn't fit. Something about them didn't. That night, after everyone left, I went to the living room to collect the plates. Adel was still there, helping Mom with the chairs. When I asked him casually about Zara, where she was from, what she did, he was vague. Too vague. She's just someone I met a while ago, he said. We've been living together for a few months, actually. I froze. Living together? He nodded. Yeah, I didn't tell you because I knew you'd judge me. My throat felt dry. Adel, you can live with whoever you want. But why would I judge you? He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. You wouldn't understand. Zara's complicated. And that was all he said. That night, as I lay awake listening to the ceiling fan whirring above me, I realized I wasn't angry. Not yet, just uneasy, because for the first time in my life, I didn't know my brother anymore. And that silence between us, the things he wasn't saying, was louder than any confession could ever be. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the courtyard like nothing had changed. My mother hummed in the kitchen, flipping parathas on the stove, and the smell of frying butter almost made things feel normal again. Almost. Adel and Zara had left early, or so Mom said. Apparently, they'd had plans. She sounded happy for him, hopeful even. I think she's good for him, she said, buttering my plate before I could protest. He finally looks settled. Settled. That word sat bitter on my tongue. Because what I saw last night wasn't a man who'd found peace. It was a man walking on eggshells around someone who owned him. I smiled anyway. Maybe you're right, I said. He deserves some happiness. But when I sat down to eat, I found Zara's hair clip still on the table, a small, gold butterfly, its wings slightly bent. I picked it up, running my thumb over the sharp edge. It wasn't the kind of thing you forgot. I slipped it into my pocket without knowing why. That week, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. I tried to move on, focused on work, on my small business clients, on normal life. But every few hours, my mind went back to Adel's awkward tone, Zara's too perfect smile, that strange line she'd dropped in the kitchen. So, I did what older sisters do when they sense trouble. I checked in. I called Adel 3 times. No answer. I messaged him. He replied with short, cold texts. Finally, on the 4th day, he picked up. Hey, he said, his voice tired. I've just been busy. Busy, huh, I said lightly. With Zara, he hesitated. Yeah, she's been going through a lot. I'm trying to help. Something inside me prickled. Through what? He sighed. Look, sis, I really don't want to get into it. You wouldn't understand her past. I laughed softly. You're right, I don't understand, because you're not telling me anything. He muttered something about being late for work and hung up before I could press further. That was the moment I knew, this wasn't about love. It was about control. 2 days later, I ran into one of his old coworkers, Nadia, at the grocery store. She'd worked with Adel back at that advertising firm. When I mentioned his new girlfriend, Nadia froze mid-sentence. Wait, Zara? She asked. Zara Malik. Yes, I said slowly. Why? Nadia's eyes widened. You're joking. She's the one who almost got Adel fired last year. She accused their manager of harassment after they had an affair. It was messy, people took sides. Adel tried to protect her and got dragged into it. My stomach dropped. He told me nothing about that. Well, Nadia said, lowering her voice, word around the office was that she blamed him when things blew up. Said he leaked her messages. That's when she quit. He was devastated. I just stood there, numb, the carton of eggs sweating in my hands. Zara, the same woman who'd almost ruined his career. And now she was sitting at my family table, wearing my mother's smile, living in his home. I left the store without remembering to pay for the bread. That night, I called Adel again. He didn't pick up, so I went to his apartment. It wasn't far, a modest flat on the edge of the city. When he opened the door, he looked startled to see me. Wow, you could have called, he said, rubbing his temple. I did, I said evenly. You didn't answer. He stepped aside reluctantly, and I entered. The place smelled like jasmine candles and men's cologne, and something else, something faintly bitter, like burnt sugar. There were 2 coffee cups on the table, lipstick on one. Clothes draped over the couch. Zara's out, he said quickly. She's meeting a friend. I looked around. You've been living together for how long? A few months. Since when does a few months mean keeping secrets from your family? He looked away. You don't understand, Amira. She's been through a lot. She needs me. I folded my arms. And you need to be her savior. His jaw tightened. You always do this. You think I can't make my own choices. Not when those choices destroy you. He glared at me, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before, guilt. Zara told me what you think of her, he said bitterly. She said you'd judge her, that you'd never accept her. I felt my chest tighten. I don't judge, Adil. But I do see, and what I see is a woman who's already hurt you once. He didn't answer. Instead, he walked to the window and looked out, his back stiff. I tried one last time. I'm your sister, I'm not your enemy. He turned. Then stop acting like one. I left without another word. But as I reached the car, I noticed something through the window, a small framed photo on his side table. It was the picture we'd taken at last year's Eid dinner, me, him, and Mom. Only, the photo was folded neatly down the middle. My half, gone. A week later, Mom called. Adil said you haven't spoken, she said gently. Whatever's going on, fix it before our next family dinner. I'll try, I said softly, though I knew things were far from fixable. And yet, that phone call planted an idea in my mind. If Zara wanted to play family, I'd let her, on my terms. So when Mom suggested another get-together, a late celebration for my cousin's birthday, I offered to host it myself. I sent invitations, planned every detail, made sure Adil knew it would be at my house this time. And when I sent him the invite, I added one line just for him. You can bring Zara if you like. I wanted to see them together, in my space, under my eyes. Not out of cruelty, out of clarity. I needed to know who was really sitting at my brother's table, and in his life. The night of the dinner, I wore a calm smile that didn't match the storm inside me. Mom was radiant in her sky blue shawl. The guests arrived early, the house filled with laughter and clinking glasses again. And then, fashionably late as ever, Adil walked in, with Zara on his arm. This time, she didn't just sit at my seat. She brought her own bottle of wine, handed it to my mother, and said sweetly, I hope you don't mind, I thought I'd make a toast tonight. I looked at my brother. He couldn't meet my eyes. Something inside me hardened like glass. That was the night everything changed. Because before she raised her glass, I'd already decided. If the truth was going to come out, it would come out here. In front of the people who loved him most. And this time, I wouldn't stay quiet. Zara's glass caught the chandelier light like a blade. Her smile was perfect, poised, polite, the kind of smile people use when they know every eye is on them. To family, she said softly, raising her glass. To love that heals old wounds. The room murmured politely, glasses lifted. I lifted mine too, though my hand felt cold. Adil stood beside her, still and silent. He didn't smile. He didn't even look at her. That was the first crack. Dinner went on, laughter, stories, spoons against plates. But underneath it, I could feel the tension, thick as humidity before a storm. Zara laughed too loudly at jokes that weren't funny. Adil barely touched his food. Mom, ever the peacemaker, tried to fill the space. Zara dear, you've brought such happiness into Adil's life, she said warmly. We were just saying how calm he seems these days. Zara smiled sweetly. He's been my peace, actually. He just doesn't realize how much I need him. Her tone, light, almost playful, made something twist inside me. It wasn't love I heard in her voice. It was possession. So I asked, careful and calm, and how did you two meet again? Adil never really told me. Zara's eyes flickered, just for a second. Oh, through work. Ah, I said, pretending to remember. Right, you worked at the agency with him, didn't you? The one that closed after that scandal. The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut the air. Adil looked up slowly, his face drained of color. Zara's fork froze midair. You've been talking to people, she said softly. I've been listening, I replied. There's a difference. Her eyes darkened. You think you know everything, don't you? I smiled, though my heart pounded. No, but I do know how to read people. Mom tried to diffuse the tension, bless her. Alright, that's enough shop talk, you two. Let's eat. But it was too late. Zara set her fork down gently, her voice low and even. You want to read me, Amira? Go ahead, tell everyone what you think you've figured out. I hesitated, this wasn't how I'd planned to do it. I wanted Adil to see it himself. But she was daring me. And the truth, once it starts boiling, can't stay in the pot. I think, I said quietly, you've made a habit of attaching yourself to men who fix what you break. And my brother just happens to be your next project. Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes turned cold. You think you're protecting him, she said. But you're not. You're jealous. The room went still. Jealous, I repeated. She leaned forward, voice barely above a whisper. You've always wanted to be the one who runs his life. The big sister who saves him. But he doesn't need saving anymore, not from me, and not from you. Adil pushed his chair back. Enough, he said quietly. Zara didn't stop. You can't stand that he's happy without you. That someone else knows him better than you ever did. I looked at my brother. Is that true? He didn't answer. He just rubbed the bridge of his nose, eyes heavy with exhaustion. That was when I saw it, the faint bruise near his collarbone, barely hidden by his shirt. My chest went cold. I stood. Adil, what happened to your neck? He froze. His eyes darted to Zara. She spoke before he could. He fell. You know how clumsy he is. But her voice trembled, just slightly. That's all it took. The rest of the evening unraveled fast. Mom, sensing something was wrong, excused the guests one by one, her hands shaking as she poured coffee that no one drank. Zara tried to keep her composure, but every word she spoke sounded like glass cracking. You're twisting everything, she said. You're trying to make me the villain. I kept my voice steady. I'm not trying to make you anything, Zara. But I will not let you destroy him again. She laughed, a short, brittle sound. Destroy him. He begged me to come back, Amira. After everything, he still chose me. Doesn't that tell you something? Adil's voice broke through, low and raw. I didn't choose you. She turned to him, stunned. He continued, his hands trembling. You showed up at my office months after we ended things. You said you had no one. I felt guilty. I thought if I helped, maybe you'd move on. But you never did. Zara's face twisted. You're lying. He shook his head. I let you stay because I was scared. Because you said you'd hurt yourself if I left again. The room went silent, and then she whispered, almost childlike, you promised you'd never say that. What happened next felt like slow motion. Zara stood, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. Her eyes darted from me to him, wild and lost. You told her everything, she said. You let her turn you against me. No one turned me, he said gently. I just finally opened my eyes. For a second, I thought she might throw the glass in her hand. But instead, she placed it down carefully, too carefully. Then she smiled, that same soft, perfect smile. I should go, she said. Before you both convince yourselves you're heroes. She grabbed her purse and walked toward the door. Just before leaving, she turned to me. You think this is over, she said. But people like me never really leave. Then she was gone. The silence after she left felt like a vacuum. Mom sat down, breathing hard, one hand over her chest. Ya Allah, she whispered. I knelt beside her. It's okay, Mama, she's gone. But she wasn't gone, not really. The scent of her perfume lingered in the room, faint but sharp, like something poisonous that takes a while to fade. Adil sat on the couch, face buried in his hands. For the first time in years, he looked small. I didn't want you to see me like this, he said quietly. Weak. You're not weak, I said. You were just trying to love someone who didn't know how to be loved. He gave a small, broken laugh. You sound like Dad. That made me smile, a painful, nostalgic kind of smile. Then maybe that's a good thing. Over the next few weeks, he moved back home. Slowly, the shadows under his eyes faded. He started cooking again, teasing Mom, playing old songs on the radio while we cleaned. It was like watching color return to a faded photograph. But sometimes, I'd catch him staring out the window, quiet, far away. Once, I asked him if he missed her. He thought for a long time. Then said softly, I miss the idea of her. The version I thought she was. And I understood. Because sometimes, love doesn't die, it just changes shape. 3 months later, I found Zara's gold butterfly clip still tucked in my drawer. I held it for a moment, then walked to the garden and buried it beneath the rose bush. Not out of hate, out of closure. Because some stories don't end with revenge or ruin. They end with release. Final line. That night, as I watched the sunset paint our courtyard golden, I realized something simple: you can't save someone from love that isn't meant for them. You can only wait until they see the truth themselves. And sometimes, that truth is all the healing you need. It's been a year since that night. A full year since the evening that started with candles and laughter, and ended with the kind of silence that changes people forever. Sometimes, I still think about Zara. Not with anger, not even with pain, just a quiet sort of curiosity. Where do people like her go when the curtain falls? Do they ever look back? Do they ever realize the hearts they've broken were real ones, not props in their performance? I don't know, but I do know what came after she left. Adel found himself again. Slowly, piece by piece. He quit the marketing job he'd taken with her and started his own small design studio, Ian Creative, named after Dad. It wasn't easy. The first few months were tight, but he worked hard. I could see it in the way his shoulders relaxed when he talked about his clients. Pride, not fear, had taken its place. Mom helped too. She cooked for his team some days, brought them parathas and chai. She said feeding others was her way of making peace with what had happened. As for me, I learned something too. For years, I'd made it my job to hold everyone together. The sister who managed, mended, and mediated. But that birthday night taught me a hard truth: love doesn't mean control. Sometimes, love means stepping back, letting people fall, even when it hurts to watch. Last week, Adel surprised me. He asked if he could host our family birthday this year, same courtyard, same lights, same cake recipe. At first, I hesitated. Are you sure? I asked. After last time, he smiled. Especially after last time. So, we did. And as the sun dipped low and the fairy lights came on, I watched him, laughing, surrounded by friends and family. His laughter sounded different this time. Lighter. Honest. There was no tension humming beneath it. No secrets hiding in the corners of the room. He introduced me to someone new that night. Amira, this is Hania, he said, smiling shyly. We've been seeing each other for a few months. Hania extended her hand, gentle, warm, eyes kind. I saw no competition there. No performance. Just a woman who had her own calm. Nice to meet you, I said sincerely. You must have a lot of patience if you're with this one. Adel groaned. Here we go. We laughed, all three of us. It felt good. Later that night, when everyone had gone home, I walked to the garden. The rose bush had grown taller, thicker, brighter, blooming in clusters of deep red. Right beneath it, still hidden in the soil, was Zara's butterfly clip. I knelt, touched the earth gently. I thought of all the things I could have done differently, the warnings I could have given sooner, the words I should have held back. But life isn't made of perfect choices. It's made of moments that break us, and what we do afterward. And in that quiet, I realized something beautiful. Sometimes, the worst day of your life doesn't destroy you. It clears the ground for something new to grow. A few weeks later, Adel gave me a framed photo, one from the birthday. We were laughing. He had frosting on his cheek, Mom was clapping her hands in delight, and behind us, the rose bush glowed in the lights. Keep this, he said. So you remember we made it through. I smiled. I don't think I'll ever forget. These days, our lives feel ordinary again, and I mean that as the highest compliment. No chaos, no half-truths, just routine, and quiet dinners, and laughter that fills the house instead of breaking it. But sometimes, when I hear a certain perfume in the street, or catch a song she once played in the car, I pause. Not out of pain, out of gratitude, because without that storm, we wouldn't have rebuilt this piece. And maybe that's the secret to surviving betrayal, not pretending it never happened, but letting it teach you what love should never be. The camera would fade here, if this were a film. You'd see the roses swaying in the wind, the lights dimming one by one. And somewhere in the distance, laughter, soft, steady, whole. I'd tell you that forgiveness isn't about the other person. It's about freeing your own heart from the weight of what they did. And I'd tell you this: if someone ever takes your seat, don't fight to get it back. Sometimes, walking away from the table is how you win your peace. When I think back to that night, the birthday, the empty chair, the moment I realized my own brother had chosen deception over honesty, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel clarity. Sometimes, the people we love the most are the ones who teach us what boundaries really mean. We expect loyalty, and we give trust, but life has a way of showing us that both are fragile. I learned that forgiveness doesn't always mean letting someone back in. It means letting go of the version of them that hurt you, so you can breathe again. And I learned that healing isn't a single moment, it's 1,000 quiet mornings where you wake up and decide not to carry their mistake anymore. So tell me, if you were in my place that night, when she sat in my seat and my brother stayed silent, would you have stood up and exposed the truth? Or would you have stayed quiet, to keep the peace? I'd really like to know what you'd do. Tell me in the comments. And if this story reminded you of something from your own life, share it. You never know who might find strength in your words. Thank you for listening to my story. This was, I invited my brother's mistress to our birthday party, and she sat at mine. Until next time, stay kind, stay brave, and remember, sometimes peace begins when the truth finally takes its seat.